Hello, dear friends. Good evening. My name is Alexander Orlov. I'm managing partner and leading coach of the Tetics School of Managers. I'm happy to welcome you here. I'm glad you found time to join us. And today I'd like to speak about two paths of development of a team lead, a manager, or a CEO. The first thing I'd like to say is that it's just our experience and not the ultimate truth. It's our experience of working for various companies like Yandex, Sun, Luxoft, and many others, and our experience of business coaching, because I've been a professional business coach since 2008, and I've been in business coaching for 15 years. I started off at Intel, and my colleague Vyacheslav Pankratov has been coaching managers for even longer, and our Tetics project is 10 years old. So our experience is drawn from our observation of our students who are also managers and team leads, and we've trained about 20,000 managers, and it also includes our own insights of how we respond to them, to the needs of managers as a school. I will start with the following. In 2005, I participated in my first large-scale managerial training. It happened in Ireland, and all beginner managers were sent there. I even have a handout from it. I can show it to you. It was called Management Through People, and Alex Orlov, a participant, as you can see there. Basic thing that we were all offered there is that all management that you work with can be represented as a cycle. This cycle includes 6 basic phases. The first one is goal setting. So first you set a goal, then there is a planning phase, then there is facilitation, which planning also includes assessment of tasks. Then you launch this process and you facilitate the work of the team. Then you perform some kind of positive control over what's happening. You offer corrective feedback to people, and then you reward the team for doing a good job. So it's all quite clear. There are methods, there are methodologies, there are recommendations, guidelines, tools, you name it. However, few things are clear when you get down to work, because each team is on a certain stage. You have new people that you work with, you have people who have certain work experience, and you have people who have a certain managerial experience, which can be successful to an extent, considering that they have not been fired yet. So using intuition, using experience, using trial and error method, these managers face certain issues as they go. And these issues, these difficulties, is something we started off as we were correcting and revising our program. We've been at it for 12 years, and now we're launching the 12th program of online education. We also have a lot of face-to-face programs, corporate programs, and we always try to figure out what's the most beneficial for managers, what's the best, what works best for them. Eventually, we arrived at this famous quote by Tom DeMarco that major problems in our work are not so much technological, but sociological in nature. He wrote about it in his book about performance management. And the second idea that was phrased by Alistair Cockburn, one of the founders of the Agile methodology, is based on his research that confirmed that people are non-linear in nature, but at the same time are the most important first-order tools in software development. You can easily Google this article that he wrote. As usual, people are the key, and facilitating and planning and goal setting should all be focused on people. And you need to take into consideration not only people you face, but also your own personality and your own type of management. It's sometimes difficult to give feedback to a person who you think is a moron, and you have already devalued this person in your head, and it's very hard to be constructive from that standpoint. As a result, we arrived at the following structure. We need to start analyzing the issues faced by managers. First of all, we believe that we need to start off with the team that you have now. We need to audit the team in terms of their skills, which you may be more or less aware of, in terms of their current phase of development, whether it's advanced or beginner, what kind of work you can perform as a manager, what kind of personalities are within the team. So we need to take stock of our environment, and we need to be aware of the tools we can use. Further on, all teams are always changing. The teams are unstable, and everything is changing. We used to always invite Teimuras, one of the managers at Kaspersky Lab, who worked at Luxoft previously, to our educational events. He also worked at Deutsche Bank and now lives in Belgium. So we invited him to give a presentation on the role of managers at trying times. So he arrives, he looks at the group, and he says, well, look at me. I've been in the market for 15 years, and I've worked for many companies, and companies undergo changes. They shrink, they extend, they conduct optimization. So there are no simple times. All the times are trying. There's always a hiring process in the company. For instance, I'm working with a lot of students under one of our programs, and I interview a lot of people who get hired and fired, and it's obvious that it's necessary to make the right choices as you hire your team. Of course, we all have an understanding of how you should hire and how you should interview candidates, what technical skills you need to check, what questions you need to ask, but the level of awareness is still rather low. On Monday, I spoke to a team of managers, about 15 of them, and we all admitted that we sometimes get confused between competencies and skills and experience, and we don't always manage to check the things we need to check at an interview. The third block is called constructive confrontation. The second block. And I'm going to offer you free sources of information that you can refer to learn how we work with it. Constructive confrontation or constructive criticism is how we can solve problems with people without offending them, without hurting them, and how we can help them grow. This practice was offered by one of our company's founders, and we've been working on it, building on it for 10 years. We've been adding elements of practical psychology and coaching, and where we are at is working as a functional mechanism that you can use as a tool to solve your problems and to apply to your day-to-day working reality. At the very least, this is what we can see in our students after they complete our courses. Constructive criticism is one of the most popular and one of the most applicable elements of our course, according to the feedback we get from our students. And goal setting is also within this audit process, because we need to include task setting and task control and delegation. We need to explain to our subordinates how we're going to control them, because it's very simple, but it's also extremely important. And finally, there's the monitoring of team status and feedback. According to our research, 70% of managers overlook this element. They feel that it's irrelevant or too challenging or too time-consuming. As a result, they can't find common ground with their teams in terms of results and expectations, and sometimes key members of their teams choose to leave. To avoid this, you need to control your team, and you need to monitor its
Мы
status.
сталкиваемся с очень
We
разными
face a lot
менеджерами.
of
Один из
different
таких
managers. One
типажей
of the most
начинающих
popular
менеджеров —
types,
это
beginner
они многих людей
managers,
меряют по себе.
they use
И
their own image, their own
если что-то не
personality
так,
to measure other
надеются, что человек
people.
к ним придет это обсуждать. Надежда — это не самый устойчивый
And they
управленческий план. И ваша карта реальности, она точно
fail
не
to see
единственная.
that their
Я
understanding of
допущу, что вы с
reality
вашими
is not
людьми,
the
с
only
вашей
one.
командой, с заказчиками, с
You
директорами
may
совпадаете
have the
по
same
ценностям,
values with
но
the
если бы вы
board
не
of
совпадали по
directors
ценностям,
and
вряд
with
ли вы
your
были бы
team,
вместе. Но
but
то, что у вас
your,
очень
so to say,
разные карты
maps of
реальности,
reality are
я
very
готов поспорить.
different,
Я
and
готов на это
I'm
поставить, потому
willing to
что
bet on it.
в вашей реальности,
If something goes
если
wrong,
что-то не так,
in
можно
your
прийти к
reality, you
начальнику и
can
ему об этом прямо
approach your
сказать.
manager
А в карте
and
реальности другого человека,
speak to
наоборот,
them.
если что-то не так, то
However,
лучше сначала пойти на рынок труда, найти себе
for
какой-то
some
оффер, и уже потом
employees, it
прийти
might also
обсуждать
be
то, что
true
не так.
that you need to
Это его карта
find
реальности. И с этим тоже мы
a job
сталкиваемся.
offer first, to find
Короче
an
говоря,
alternative job
вот эти
offer,
5
and
блоков —
only
это
then
то, к
try
чему
to
мы
fix
пришли. И,
what's
по
happening
сути, идея очень простая. То
at
есть,
your
когда люди
workplace. So
проходят
the
через
idea is
эксперимент,
simple.
наши студенты,
Our
они
students
видят, что что-то
can
не так.
see that
Вот
something is
что-то у меня
wrong
сейчас не так в работе,
at
вот
their
прямо
work,
сейчас что-то болит.
and we
И вот
offer
как
them
это исправить?
tools
Очень простая идея.
on how to make changes.
Прежде чем
First of
исправлять,
all,
можно это попробовать там в
they
учебной
train
группе,
to
в
do it in a
безопасных
safe
условиях, там все как
environment, in a
положено. Но
training
идея именно
group.
такая. А если поняли, что что-то так, то можно из этого сделать
And
вывод. Как
then
я так делаю, что у меня вот что-то так.
they try to
И,
approach
по сути,
ways of
первый
fixing
путь
it.
развития
So the
руководителя — это
first
навести порядок у
path
себя.
of a manager
Вот вы сейчас где-то работаете,
is to
видите,
get
что
their
что-то
own
не
team
так,
in order.
навести порядок у себя. Повторюсь, я провожу
As I'm
сейчас
interviewing
собеседования с
students,
студентами,
the
а знаете,
most
какой самый
frequent
частый
question that I
запрос?
ask them
Вот там у
is
нас
that
мы растем, там, или мы
we're
выпускаем
growing
новые
or we're
проекты, у нас вот такая
undergoing some kind of
реорганизация, у нас такие внешние вообще
reorganization,
обстоятельства.
and I'm
И
doing
я вроде
something and I'm
что-то
doing a
делаю,
lot,
обычно много делаю, но у
but
меня
I'm
нет
not sure
уверенности, что
I'm
я все
doing the
делаю
right
правильно.
thing.
И вот тут то тут что-то
And I
отвалится, то
see
тут что-то
that
отвалится. И первый путь, особенно если у вас сейчас
you
много
have a lot
энергии,
of
это
energy to
навести
get your
порядок в
team in
своей
order,
команде.
so you need to do just that. This is
Путь
the
роста.
path of
Потому
growth,
что пока вы
because
порядок не
until
наведете,
you get your team in
то,
order,
что происходит, будет
this
забирать вашу энергию.
disorder will
У вас
be
там будет расти
sucking the
тревожность, вы будете
energy out of
переживать, как
you.
вас оценивает
You will
руководитель, и
keep
вот
worrying about what's
пошло-поехало.
wrong with your team.
Какой второй путь?
Path number
Чтобы
2,
подойти к вот
and
этой
I'd
истории
like
про
to
второй путь, я бы
make a
здесь
little
хотел
side
поговорить не
note
про два
before we
пути
move on to
развития
the second
руководителя, а про два пути
type,
в
second
руководителе.
path of development. I'd like to
Когда-то
speak
я
about
эту
two
идею предлагал
typical
на нескольких
career
конференциях, она
paths
была
that lead
неплохо
to
воспринята.
managerial
Но
positions.
к
I
чему мы
mentioned it
пришли?
at one of the
Что мы
conferences.
наблюдаем? Мы наблюдаем, что в руководителе
Most
первого уровня
commonly,
растут обычно вот
first-order
таких два характерных
managers
типажа.
are
Первый типаж — это те,
divided
кто
into
хороши в
two
технике.
major categories.
Там лучшего программиста назначают тимлидом.
The first category
Лучшего
focuses
тестировщика
on
назначают менеджером по
skills,
тестированию.
grade A
Вторая
students.
история.
They are excellent at what
Растут
they
те, кто
do.
умеет
The
хорошо
second
ладить с другими
category
людьми,
are
хорошо налаживать отношения, не
so-called good
конфликтовать, как говорится,
students.
всеми находить
They are
общий язык.
people
Моя, например,
person.
история роста, она, конечно же,
They are a
вторая.
people person most
Когда мы
likely. They
работали
are
по
good for
контракту с Sun
everyone.
Systems, это была команда тестирования,
Most IT managers
и у
are
нас было 3 человека в
techies.
команде. Мой начальник пошел на повышение, он стал
When
директором
my
нашего
own
филиала.
manager was up for a
Образовался
promotion,
некий вакуум.
there was
Я тут
some
немножко
sort of a
наоборот, у нас было
vacuum.
4, то есть 3 и начальник.
There
Вот
were only
начальник ушел,
3
нас
of us
осталось
left,
3,
and I wasn't
и
the
я
most
точно не был самым
technically
компетентным
competent
техническим человеком.
specialist.
У нас
We
был
had
гораздо более
someone who was
компетентный товарищ,
even more
но он
competent than me,
конфликтовал
but
с
he
другим
was always
человеком в нашей
conflicting
команде. Вот
with
между ними что-то мы ругались.
another team
А
member.
я с ними обоими как-то
By contrast,
хорошо
I
общался. И в
got
итоге
on well
назначили
with
меня,
both of them,
как
so
такую
I
компромиссную
became the
фигуру,
team
назначили
lead
тимлидом
of
этой
this
команды, и
team.
вот так
So
началась
this was the beginning of my
моя
own
управленческая
managerial
карьера.
career.
То есть это вторая история. Либо так, либо так.
So
Бывают,
these are the
конечно,
two
совмещения, но в целом
types
можно
that
разложить вот по
work
этим двум
in most
составляющим.
cases, the two
Что
scenarios.
интересно, те, кто хорошие
Interestingly,
технические специалисты, идеальные в технике. История их роста — это тимлидом становится лучший
excellent
программист.
students who are
Что его
perfect in
задевает?
technique
Его
grow
обычно
out of
задевает, когда
best
кто-то
programmers,
работает хуже,
and it
чем он.
hurts them when someone
Ну, потому что он в
does a
какой-то
worse
мере меряет
job
всех по
than
себе.
he or she
Ну,
does.
неужели это так сложно вот прочитать какую-нибудь книжку
They think
полезную,
that
да,
you
там,
could always
посмотреть на Stack Overflow,
improve
что-то
your
и
own
сделать,
competencies.
сделать
You
хорошо.
could
Ну,
grow
это
as a
вроде бы несложно.
professional, and there's nothing
У него есть
difficult about
убеждение,
it.
что работу нужно
And they
делать
are
либо
most
хорошо,
likely
либо не делать ее
convinced that
совсем.
the job must be done either
Ну,
well
потому
or not done
что
at all.
мы тут профессионалы,
They
поэтому мы
prioritize
делаем какие-то
professionalism.
хорошие,
They
качественные вещи. Любимые книги
prioritize the
обычно
high
технические,
quality
любимые ресурсы технические. В
of the
мое
work
время,
they
когда я
do,
заканчивал
and
институт, это
they
были Dragon
believe
Book, это
that
был Дональд Кнут. Сейчас, наверное, какие-то есть другие
their
ресурсы. Но, в общем и целом, картина
the
примерно
books
такая.
you read should focus on
Хорошисты —
technical
это те, кто
competencies
умеет
as
хорошо
well.
ладить с другими людьми, я их так назвал условно.
So good
У них
students
другая история роста. То есть вырастают те,
are a bit
кто
are a bit
умеет хорошо
different.
находить
They
контакт
are people, so to say. They are good for everyone, and they can get on well or find common ground with anyone. They get hurt when someone is bullying colleagues in their presence or expresses their opinion without regard to the opinion of other people. So they are triggered by emotions. They're convinced that any conflicts within the team are unacceptable and bad because it creates an uncomfortable atmosphere that isn't constructive. When people are conflicting, nothing good can come out of this. So their favorite books are by DeMarco and Spolsky. And they believe that it's necessary to be very kind and gentle to team members. However, their approach isn't always efficient. Interestingly, these books contain few recommendations on how to fix problems in a non-toxic way, on how to handle team members who aren't being constructive and who aren't being professional. You can hardly find it.
So there are two types. Probably they're quite different, but at the same time they're so much alike. Probably you have noticed that before, I don't know. So you can see that they work pretty well, but the reasons are quite different. They can be working technically, and the project should be completed. Business cannot wait, so we have to sit down and think. Once we had the head of the team, Andrew, and I had an impression that he did up to 80% for the whole team. They got smoking, they were eating, were making some breaks, but he was really working hard. And those who know how to handle relationship with people, they work harder because they cannot refuse. And today I had an interview with a student, and he actually told me this. It's quite difficult to me because I would like to learn how to refuse other people, probably to colleagues, friends, but he knows and he probably likes helping people, and he does this. And this is another model. If something goes wrong, just approach to him and he will help you. And those people work harder. What's more, those people who are very good with techniques, they just do not know how not to know how to do something. They do not have a right to be angry or to show your emotions. Yes, they do not have a right to mistake. They're not professional, or they're not a team player, and that means that you can put a cross, you can stop working together, and you stop thinking about that people. And excellent students, they behave differently. Probably they fire people, go to their bosses, but it all happens very quickly. The ideal team, the perfect team, is everyone like you, so they are pretty the same. And what is curious, and probably that the paths are different, but they arrive at the same point. We can compare that to the plateau. I don't know where you are now, but I have noticed before, and I can learn it from my team as well and other people. At the very beginning, it looks pretty well. You are a boss now, you have new tasks, and your salary is higher. With 22, I went to the Silicon Valley for the first time. It was the year 2000, and it was a very cool experience. Business trips, apartment, you work for the big company, Los Angeles, Las Vegas. So you are only 22, and you hope at that time that your life will continue this way and you will go even further, but at a particular time it all stops. Probably you work hard as well, but you do not have any growth in your salary or in further positions in your career path. So why is it all happen? Yes, putting the things in order
идя по этому первому пути развития,
in the
по которому
team,
необходимо
you
пройти,
have to follow the path,
ты
and
наводишь его на своей
you
энергии,
use your own
используя
and
свой
your natural
естественный управленческий
style of
стиль.
managing.
Вот тот, который у нас у
We all
каждого
have
есть.
them.
У
We have
кого-то он,
very
естественно,
clear
директивный, у кого-то он
directives,
харизматический,
charismatical
у кого-то он
ones, or probably
демократичный, очень разный.
democratic ones,
Но ты
but
используешь
you
какой-то вот
use your own
свои некие
skills and
способности,
experiences
психологи
according
сказали бы, что используешь
your
свои
adaptational
адаптационные
mechanism,
механизмы
according to
для того, чтобы
psychologists,
вот в этой реальности
to
быть успешным.
face the
И
reality and to be
все вот это наведение
successful.
порядка и
And
дальнейшее движение
further
команды обычно идет
steps,
на твоей
they
энергии.
are all based on your
И
energy.
исходя из
And
этого, энергия
once the
заканчивается.
energy
Рано или
is
поздно
you
она
are
заканчивается, если
out
ты не
of
понимаешь
energy,
процесса, который там происходит.
and
И
it's
двигаться дальше
quite
становится очень сложно.
difficult
Что
to
самое
continue
главное, вот в этот
moving,
момент тебя
to
никому
move
не будет
on.
жалко.
And
Правда. Потому что
in
бизнес
these
в этом
terms,
смысле
business,
такая довольно
it's a kind
бездушная, что ли,
of
машина. Да?
a
Ну вот
machine.
окей, энергия закончилась. Ну что, тогда, значит, ставим
That
на это
means
место
that they
другого
can
человека.
just hire another person on your
Очень редко
position.
кто-то будет
And
разбираться с вашим
probably no
состоянием,
one
там, не
will be
знаю, оплачивать
interested
психотерапевта,
in
клинику
your
неврозов там, и так
conditions,
далее. И ждать,
invite a
пока вы восстановитесь,
psychologist, or
потому что это иногда
help you
процесс
because it
растягивается на
all
месяцы, на годы.
takes time.
А,
And the question
Что
is,
делать?
the
Возникает
question which
вопрос.
is raising
И вот
is
здесь
what
вот
to do.
открывается второй путь, который мы, когда
Once we
начинали доходить
started
наши
our
программы,
programs,
конечно, не очень сильно
we
про него
haven't
думали.
actually
Второй путь–
thought a
это растить
lot
своих людей.
about the path
Потому что
number
если ты
one,
не
and
растишь
path
своих
number
людей,
two
все будет
is
ехать на твоей
try
энергии.
to train your people.
В конце
At the end of
2014 года мы
2013,
запускали
we
годовую
launched
программу
our
обучения. Онлайн-обучение.
one-year online
У нас
program
такая была
for
заочка,
video
4
courses,
видеокурса. И мы
and
хотели
we tried
понять,
to
что за люди к нам
understand the
придут.
audience.
То
We
есть мы решили
decided to
кастомизировать программу, чтобы эти курсы
customize it
выдавать
to
каждому в
our
своем порядке.
clients,
И предложили
and
людям
we
пройти разное
proposed
количество
them
тестов.
to do
Тест на
several
психотип,
tests
тест на
on the
профессиональную
professional
ориентацию. Мы взяли
orientations,
тест MMPI, Миннесотский
and
многопрофильный
we
опросник, и
put
написать эссе, зачем вот вам
down this
пришли.
on the
И вот
paper.
люди начали
People
все это
sent
проходить,
us their
присылать. К нам пришло
answers,
500 человек.
and
Тогда
together
и
with
мы вместе с Сашей
Slava and
Широченко и Святославой
Sasha, we
Панкратовой сидели и
analyzed the
анализировали
figures
все эти
that we got
результаты.
from them and the results achieved.
То есть реально,
So
знаете, на
it
месяц
took
попали
us
из жизни,
roughly
потому
a
что
month
погрузились вот
because we
в
just made
то, что
some
нам принесли студенты.
such dive. But
Один из
one
этих тестов, тест
test
MMPI, он довольно
showed
неплохо показывал в ресурсном состоянии
about the
человека, то есть или в
resource and
нересурсном. То есть он
non-resource conditions.
с хорошим
So was
уровнем
it a
энергии, он
very
вот
good
целое
level of
состояние
energy
астении.
or low one? And
Удивительно было то, что 60%
interestingly, it
людей
means
пришли в
that
нересурсном
people
состоянии.
didn't
Пошли
have
учиться.
energy.
Половина
They
из этих
paid
людей
for their
заплатили
own
сами за свое
education
обучение.
and studying. And I started
Я начал
thinking
думать, почему
why
люди пришли к нам, а
people
не к каким-то другим
came to us,
специалистам. Мне
not to
показалось,
other
что такое отсутствие
professionals.
удовольствия от
And
работы люди
probably it
связывали с тем,
resulted
что они давно не
that
учились. Коллеги, могу я вам сейчас
we've
задать
launched this
вопрос?
program.
Вот
Dear colleagues, may I ask you a
если взять
question?
такую простую шкалу, да, вот от
So
1 до
let us
10,
put this on the scale from 1
как бы
to
вы по этой
10,
шкале
and I would like
оценили
you
то
to
удовольствие, которое вы
estimate
получаете от вашей работы?
the
То есть 10
satisfaction
это
with
я
your
на
job.
работу как на
So
праздник,
10 means that
когда там
work
все
means for
круто,
me
мне
a
все
holiday.
нравится, не знаю, я
I'm
просыпаюсь, у
full
меня
of
куча энергии, я
energy.
вот только позавтракал и
I
сразу начинаю
just
работать.
eat my
1 это когда я
lunch or eat
просыпаюсь
my
и думаю, господи,
breakfast,
когда уже
and I'm
выходные?
ready to start
Когда
working.
вы уже совсем не
And
любите свою работу,
one
и от меня
is
тошнит.
when you're not
Если взять
satisfied,
вашу
you feel
ситуацию по
sick
этой шкале,
from
где
your
вы по шкале от 1 до
job.
10?
So here
Потому что здесь
I
вроде
can
я
see
вижу,
several
поступают ответы.
answers.
Да, вот я
If,
вижу
like
первый
for
ответ 8,
example, 7,
7,
4,
4. Сейчас я помотаю, коллеги ваши.
4,
Это
3,
4,
6,
3, 6,
9,
9,
9.
9.
I do
Пока
not
не
see
поступают
any
десятки, но довольно
tens,
много
but
высоких
it's
оценок. Это
quite
интересно.
interesting. And it's
Интересно,
interesting
что к нам
that
приходят люди на
people
таком
with
высоком уровне энергии.
which are full of
Ам,
energy, they come to us.
Вот это
And
важно,
this is very
понимаете? Потому что
important.
если ты в нересурсном
If
состоянии,
you do
очень
not
тяжело
have
учиться, очень тяжело
resources
куда-то
or
дальше двигаться.
energy, it's quite
Ты
complicated
приволакиваешься
for
на
you to
работу и
study.
надеешься, что
Thus,
проект
for
провалится, потому
you,
что для тебя это такой
you are
способ
you
освободиться
feel
от
fatigue.
вот этого источника
And so the
усталости.
question is how to do
Ну вот
and
и
how
номер
to
2, растить своих людей.
behave
А как
and
это
how
делать?
to provide growth for
Почему
your people.
эти люди не растут?
And the answer is
Потому что есть
because
разные
the
стили
styles
управления.
of managing,
Да, вот можете
they
сейчас
are
в табличку
pretty
не вчитываться,
different.
там,
You
допустим,
can read
в
about
разных
us in
книжках
different
и где-то
books,
еще.
and
Но
they're
обычно
quite
директивный,
basic ones.
харизматический, отеческий,
Directive,
демократичный,
charismatic,
эталонный.
follow
Есть еще
democratic
коучинговый, внизу так
benchmark
написано,
coaching.
незаметно. Вот,
You
и
can see
вообще
it in
незаметно выделено
yellow.
желтым.
And the
И мысль в
idea
том, что у
is
каждого
that
из нас
for
этот
all of
стиль
us, we
присутствует,
have
естественно.
different types.
И в кризисных
And
ситуациях
when we are
включается
in
именно там
crisis,
естественный
we
стиль
have
управления.
our our own style of management. For example, my personal one is charismatic. when we are failing, at this very moment, I can approach and just tell what's going on here. I cannot just, it's quite difficult to me to find the right words right now. So let's pull us together and let's try to do something. I try to tell you something and then we'll continue. Dear colleagues, for example, Slava Pankratov, he has a directive style. When there are no sales at all, he can tell, okay, let's figure out what shall we do right now. His own history. And the story is they cannot develop people in the right way. And what is the best one is the coaching. Lastly, we saw several manipulations or discussions, critics, skepticisms, and me too, I was skeptic too, as a technician. Coaching, it's not a science, but according to experience, there is a lot of sense and use when you dive and you understand better how the process works. You can understand better your team and how it will work. Let me provide you an example. One of our employees, she comes and she tells, there is a person in our team, but she does everything in the wrong way. I illustrated her with the right example. You can see that. So this is a directive approach because she provided examples. And the question which arises is, this employee, what she or he can learn from that? Probably nothing. And probably at the same time, he or she will become as an ideal employee. The second example is, what kind of conclusions can be made when you have watched the work of that people? And what is the difference for me personally is that you in this way can raise the awareness in the people and how they learn from that experience. As when I'm not here, I'm not near, and I need to be sure that everything works. And this is all lies in the responsibility when you have the choice how to do. Yes, dear colleagues, if you would be appointed, for example, I can see Mikhail in our guests, to put down some notes after the webinar, probably he would thank me and he would put down something. I don't know the form or the type. Probably he is tired and he is not full of energy to put down some notes. And the next point, probably, I think, if I would think or tell you, would you please put down some notes because it would be useful for all participants and I think it would work because these stories are different. Thus you can understand much more responsibility for your personal choice. And to tell the truth, for me personally, there is no growth in a person, no energy, and that means that this person is machine. You do not have to think, but you have to do something. And for me, this style is all about the responsibility. My responsibility and the responsibility of my employees. Let me provide you another example. We have an employee, a colleague, which comes to us with Slava Pankratov, and she makes some lamentations about the client. He is quite a complicated man, and at this particular moment, I can see my colleague Slava. He is getting quite angry. Let us refuse and get rid of this client because I think this is the right choice. You can do something what makes you feel happy, and because this is your task, of course, to make the client satisfied, but it doesn't work. And Slava, he can just simply tell that. So that means that we can get rid of all the clients. And this is all about the triangles of Gottman. The victim, the aggressor, and the savior, the classical triangle. And we can spend lots of time on that, try on different roles and models. At a particular time, when you notice that everything is changeable, we discuss it with Slava, and the situation repeats. Then, once again, we have the employee. She approaches us again, and Slava tries to protect her. When you tell that, what do you want actually from us, from me and Slava? Then she makes a pause, she gives a thought. What would you like to have from us? An advice? A piece of advice? Support? Or what? And it's very important to realize what kind of role would you try on and to raise the awareness of the employee. And for me, it's the way, the path.
I've said that we have programs for both paths, and everything I've talked about today is our experience. It's not comprehensive, of course, but we've observed it on thousands of managers, team leads, CEOs, when people face issues within their team, when they feel low on energy and they try to start doing something, but it's very difficult when you're low on energy. So, speaking about our programs that can be relevant, the Tetics School of Management programs, we have 3-day intensive courses, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, including cases and practice, and month-long courses that are split into these 3-day sessions. There's also an opportunity to train online in between the sessions. The second path is our coaching management course, which I personally will be teaching in a small group, not more than 40 people. We'll be working during February, 1 or 2 days a week with specific cases that will enable you to better understand yourself and to better figure out your own managerial style, how you resolve issues within your team, who you believe in, who you want to grow and develop, how to change your managerial style to avoid your typical mistakes and difficulties. We're going to work on cases that will help you meet these objectives. There are several books that I would recommend you to read if you want to get a better grasp on 2 paths. First of all, The Manager's Black Book by Vyacheslav Pankratov, my colleague. There are a lot of swear words in Russian, and there's also my book by Alexander Orlov, Jedi Techniques for Constructive Communications. It saw the light of day last year. It is both available as an audiobook and on paper. There's also our blog that contains a lot of information on useful tools for managers that can help you get your team in order. So speaking about how to train your people, I could recommend another book of mine as well. That could also be called a book on coaching, the Jedi Techniques. There are also 2 very beneficial books by John Whitmore and Atkinson and Joyce. Dear colleagues, I believe that we have had a rather detailed discussion, and I can see many familiar names among the participants, and if I could give you one piece of advice today, it would be the following. If you have never been a student of the Tetics School of Managers, and if you are facing certain issues within your team, these paths are what you need, the second path, because apart from the necessary tools, there will also be a studio that I will be teaching, a studio that will help you elaborate your own managerial style, and this studio guarantees you change in just a few months, and this change is bound to be positive in terms of clarity and in terms of how you will view management afterwards. If you have already been our student, I would recommend you the second path most of all. First of all, I had the first such group in September and October, and we addressed issues like how to avoid being the source of energy for your team. The side effect of this program is that you find the ability to resolve very pressing, very relevant issues within your team. If you're a CEO, if you're in charge of a team of managers, I would, of course, recommend you to send your managers to path 1 and opt for path 2 yourself. This way you will be able to support their growth and to adjust your own style of management. This could be beneficial for all of you. So, dear colleagues, this is about all. If you have any questions, I will be happy to address them. But I'm going to add just one more thing. The situation that you're in, the problems that you may be facing in your team or in your career or in your employees growing or failing to grow is the result of your own choices. And it is necessary to be aware of how you arrived at the point where you're at right now. This awareness is the starting point. Without it, you will just be going by trial and error. And you're very likely to repeat the situation in a new place of work. So this is why I spoke in detail about such issues and about the two paths. So, dear colleagues, if you have any questions, I will be happy to address them because we have 23 minutes more left of the webinar. Speaking of dates, Path 1 program takes off on February 5th. The first session is from 5th to the 7th. And the Path 2 takes off on the 9th of February. It's all happening quite soon, and I will be happy to see you at both programs. I can't see any questions so far. So let's wait a couple more minutes, dear colleagues. It's best if you start by reading the books and articles that I suggested before taking up a course. It's quite hard to give you any specific recommendations because you are, of course, tied by your time limits and by your financial restraints. I'm taking a couple of courses elsewhere and I'm reading literature, and of course, every approach has its own advantages and disadvantages. We will be thrilled to see you at our school, but if you choose to read books instead and if you find it sufficient and comfortable, this is of course wonderful. Well, somebody has reported that the link to the coaching is not functional, which I believe is not true, but if you just Google Tetics School of Managers Management Styles, you will see it. So, how can this program help you? Based on the first launch, our first program included about 30 students, and 23 of them or so attended sessions face-to-face and online. People had very different needs and very different questions. Some of them were heads of departments. Some of them had a very authoritarian style of management. And one of the most frequent questions was about this being the source of energy and feeling that they are running out of energy.
работы в двойках, в тройках. То есть
So
чем больше человек
the
эфира
more
занимает,
time
ну вот,
people spend
если
talking
80%
within a
эфира
group,
занято человеком, значит и в
the
работе
more
вот все есть на
energy
него энергия.
they
И первое, что там мы рекомендовали, это
offer to
смотреть,
their
сколько эфира вы
teams.
занимаете в работе. Потому что
This
я
is
верю в
the
то,
rule
что
that's always true,
макропроцессы
because I'm
повторяются в
convinced
микропроцессах.
that macro
Вот то, что
processes
происходит в
are
обучении,
replicated in
с
micro
некоторой долей
processes.
вероятности
What we
оно же
observe
повторяется в
in
реальной жизни.
training groups
И вот эти
is
параллели
most likely true
важно
about
проследить.
normal life as well.
Сегодня я собеседовал студента, у нас есть
We have
вводный
an
кейс, на который
introductory
люди
case that we
отвечают.
always
И
offer
там
to
вопрос,
students.
что вы будете делать с
What will
членами
you do
команды?
with
Ну,
the
из
team
кейса.
members in the
И ответ у
case?
человека. Я
So
объясню вот этому члену команды
student
вот это, я вот этому
answers
скажу,
that
что делать.
they're going to
Я говорю, слушайте, ну вот
explain
очень интересно. Вот, по сути, это
to team
директивный
members
стиль
what
управления.
they did wrong and
Человек
how
недавно стал
to
тем лидом.
work better.
И
So
я
this
не
is
знаю, там, я не
an
оцениваю,
example
хорошо это
of
или плохо пока.
the
Но интересно,
authoritarian
насколько это
management
повторяется в реальной
style.
жизни. И человек
And
задумывается, потому что вот
this
она
is
проведена
food for
параллель.
thought for the student. This is an
Поэтому в таких
analogy
случаях
that
программа
we've
поможет,
been
мне
able
сложно
to
сказать,
draw.
да, потому что, понимаете, я же не знаю, сколько
I
чего
can't
из нее вы
guarantee
несете.
that you will
Вот,
get
но
a specific
что
number
точно
of
было,
takeaways from our
все это
program.
моя энергия, и люди это разрешили,
But
по
what
крайней
we
мере, для себя
observed
поняли,
with our
что
students
дальше делать.
is that people have
Люди пришли с
found
кейсами,
practical
и практически все свои
resolutions to
кейсы
their
разобрали,
problems.
потому что в этой программе у нас примерно
About
70%
70%
это
of our
практика.
program is dedicated
Очень
to
короткие
practice.
лекционные блоки, и
We
потом мы
have
идем в
a
практику.
brief
И
theory
в
sessions,
практике
and then we move
практикуемся мы
on
на
to
рабочих кейсах,
cases,
на живых
to
кейсах, на
fresh
реальных,
cases
свежая рыба, как
from
говорится.
real
И
life
они
practical
разбираются.
experience.
То есть даже если твой
So
напарник не
even
профессиональный
if you
коуч,
have a
удивительно,
professional
что если ты
coach
об
for a
кого-то думаешь,
partner,
об заинтересованное зеркало,
it's still
то
very
происходят вот
beneficial
такие вот
to
инсайты,
work
и ты понимаешь, что у
in
тебя за
small
процессы.
groups, and you get a lot of insights from such work.
Какое время обучения происходит в пятницу? У нас будет
We
два
will have
потока,
two
вот если
tracks.
говорить про путь номер один, один будет с 10 до 15 по Москве,
If we
другой с
take the
17 до
first
22
path,
по
get your
Москве. То
team
есть
in
вот
order,
лучше, я так понимаю, что есть возможность
we
выбрать,
will have
оказаться
two
в группе
groups.
и
One
там, и
will
там.
we'll have
Вот.
classes
Но
at
если вы уже в школе, то лучше у куратора прояснить,
3 p.m.
в
Moscow
какое
time,
время
and the
у вас
second
будут занятия. И
path,
готов пойти
the
на курс
second track
управления
will be
сетью коуча, хочу
later.
проверить и получить опыт
And of
создания. Мне с
course,
первого
you can
курса будет
choose the
личный
time
набор.
that
Я думаю, что
suits you
будут,
best.
потому что мне эта тема лично очень интересна, и я в
So
нее
the
погружаюсь
topic of
последние 3
managerial
года.
Styles
Гештальт-подход,
is very
коучинг, разные группы, разные
fascinating, and I've been
тренинги,
fascinated with it for the
индивидуальная
last
работа с
few
людьми.
years. I've been
То есть это вот
focusing
то,
on
чем
it,
я занимаюсь
and I've
параллельно
been
с
working on it in
бизнес-тренингами
parallel with my
последние 3
own
года.
trainings. Okay,
Говорят, что
so
ссылка на
they say
коучинг
that the
работает.
link to the
Спасибо.
coaching blog is
Если результаты
functional.
студентов, к чему
All
это
right.
привело в карьере
Do your students
и финансах, пока
report
нет. То есть мы не
specific
опрашивали,
results
хорошие
in
идеи, кстати
terms
говоря,
of their
программа
career or
завершилась в конце
financial
октября, в конце
outcomes?
октября.
No, we
То есть не
haven't
так
had
много
any
времени
such
прошло.
reports because this program
И для меня,
is
кажется, вопрос,
is
да,
a new
но
one.
это
It has
произошло у
only
людей
completed
благодаря программе,
recently,
или это
and
просто они молодцы.
there's always a
Как-то всегда
question of
тяжело
whether
отделить
it happened because
эту
of the
историю, да,
program or just because
вот, где
they are
благодаря обучению, а
efficient
где
professionals
благодаря
and did a
каким-то
good
другим
job.
факторам.
It's very hard to say if such
Наверное,
results
есть
are
отзывы,
the
да, вот на
direct
сайте как раз есть отзывы,
outcome
можете
of our
послушать, там
programs.
4 человека,
But you can
там
refer to
и
our
Алла
website where
Царьгородская,
there is feedback
и
from our students.
Михаил
Alla Trigorодskaya,
Сафонов,
Mikhail,
Александр
or
Сафонов.
Alexander
Вот
Safonov.
видите, я уже
Unfortunately, I
забываю
sometimes
имена
forget
участников,
the
мне очень
names of our
стыдно.
participants,
Но вот те ребята,
but
которые
there
участвовали,
is
они как раз делятся
real-world
какими-то своими
feedback from our
выводами,
students who
своим
share their
опытом.
experience, their professional
Что
experience of
точно происходит в
applying the
таких случаях? Людям
insights.
становится легче. Вот это субъективное, конечно, ощущение, но
Most
становится прям сильно легче.
school participants
Будут ли
report
скидки для
feeling much
выпускников
better
стартап-плана?
and
Думаю,
finding
что
it
да.
easier to work after our program.
В какой форме происходит путь 2?
So,
Набор отдельных
the
занятий или
format of
взаимосвязанная цепь?
path
Это
2.
взаимосвязанная цепь. Это
It is
4
a
недели мы
connected
будем работать
sequence
в
of
феврале и начало марта затронем. По вторникам
classes
и
on
средам.
Tuesdays and
В одну неделю
Wednesdays.
мы сдвинемся на среду
We'll
четверг,
only
потому
have
что там
a
8
Wednesday
марта.
and a Thursday once because of a public
По 2
holiday.
раза в неделю получается по 3
3
часа в день.
hours a day.
Это онлайн,
Online
это со мной,
sessions
это
with me,
постоянная работа в
continuous
тройках, в
work
небольших
in small
группах, потом
groups
разбор этого
of
всего на
3,
всех. Это какие-то определенные
homeworks.
домашние задания. То есть это
So
вот
this is a
прям такая
very
работа.
consistent
И я понимаю, что
and
это много времени, поэтому
time-consuming
вот
program.
если
So
собираетесь
if
и
you would like to
захотите,
take it,
нужно, конечно,
make
думать.
sure that you have enough
Время,
time.
опыт показывает, что оно уплотнится, и все равно ничего важного вы не
Because
упустите. Да?
if
Семье все равно
you
скажете,
really
извините,
need it, you can
я
always
учусь.
find the necessary
Меня,
time.
пожалуйста, не трогайте. Ну, я так делаю. Вот. Какое
So,
количество
how
участников в
many
группах?
people are
Если
there
говорить про
in
путь номер
groups?
1, то в
So,
группах
path number
порядка
1,
10 человек.
groups of about
Плюс наш
10,
куратор.
plus a curator.
будут вот происходить именно таким образом.
Coaching style management, we would like to have groups of up to 40%, considering that not all participants attend every class. And as a result, we'll end up with a group of about 30 participants. And most practical assignments take place in groups of 3. So everybody will have an opportunity to practice. I sometimes conduct demo sessions when I work with some of the participants. We sometimes have cases dedicated to team processes, and we observe a certain scenario in action. So there are many small formats within the bigger format. I'm your student, and I'm going to return from my maternity leave in March, and I was wondering when your next, when the next program like this is going to be available. Well, it's hard to say right now, but we'll see. Okay, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for dedicating time to our webinar. I'm convinced that it's important, and no matter if we speak about our programs or something else, I believe that we've been able to cover some important ground, because I believe that this was a chance for you to listen to yourself and to focus on yourself and your issues and problems. So make sure to attend Tetics School of Managers webinars, read books, and find time for yourself. Stay tuned. Have a great evening. Goodbye.